Oh, sure.
Yes, we have a number of people who have asked for the Zoom link today. So, but let me start out with a letter that we received from David Rhodes. I do not have an address for Mr. Rhodes. And he writes, unfortunately, I just noticed that the time for the Town University Relations Committee is at 1 o'clock instead of in the evening when people from the town could actually attend after work. Is the town interested in the opinions of the people who live here or just here to serve the university? There are several items of interest about which I would like to express an opinion, but fortunately I have a job that I need to attend to. Unfortunately, the scheduling that you have imposed does not allow me to participate in decisions that will have an impact on me. Please have some consideration for the people you are elected to serve. And the second letter that I had, statement, actually, someone is here who sent it to me. So apparently she can speak for herself when that time comes.
And who is that? Since I don't know who the letters are.
It would be Leslie Turner, who's identified as iPhone.
Oh, okay. Hi, Leslie. Would you like to speak to the group?
Certainly, yes. My name is Leslie Turner. My husband Fred and I live at 30 Timber Drive in Stores. My general feelings, particularly in the planning of future academic, commercial, and housing developments, are that both the University of Connecticut and the town of Mansfield have a responsibility to respect and protect the needs of our community's residents and natural environment. Some of the proposed construction developments for the town of Mansfield will forever change.
Right?
Excuse me.
Hold on. Oh, you don't need any?
Dale, if you could mute your phone also, just to make sure everyone's on mute.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I have very low vision, so it's very.
I'm sorry, somebody, I'm at a hospital room and, you know, things are okay here, but somebody walked in and just started talking. Staff. As I wanted to just reiterate that, you know, my husband is my feeling is that the university and the town of Mansfield have a responsibility to respect and protect the needs of our community residents and the natural environment around us. Some of the proposed construction developments for the town of Mansfield will forever change valuable, unique ecosystems, upsetting both wildlife and access to clean water for this community. Not to mention the possibility of polluting waterways that eventually empty into the shores of Connecticut and Long Island Sound. Additionally, the study of the area wetlands should be done and should be expanded. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for the work you do for our town.
Thank you, Leslie. I see some other guests here, so I'm not sure. Let me just look at your list. Sheila, would you like to speak next?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Sheila Amder. I live on Separatist Road in Stores. I chair the town's Affordable Housing Committee, but I want to make it clear I speak today as a private citizen. I'm very glad to see that this discussion, I'm sure it's not the first discussion you've had, of the impact of development on the community. And also, I think Jennifer is going to be talking about the town's planning for affordable housing. Of the developments, which are quite astonishing, that are being proposed for the town, I think both privately and by the university, the scope of it is quite astonishing. The town, certainly from the private ones, whatever gets to be built, will get taxes, will get affordable housing, and will get payments into a housing trust fund. It doesn't get, for all the housing the university is building, even though we work in other ways at the university, there is no payment and there's no consideration, as far as I can see, for the impact on the community. But let me tell you very specifically about the impact that's happening right now. The university, I've lived here for almost, just for a brief interlude, for 50 years, over 50 years. And early in that time, worked with the university on affordable housing. So it's been at this for a long time, and about issues related to particularly graduate students and teaching assistants who at that time were paid much less comparatively than they get now. And the university was addressing that in terms of Northwood Apartments, Mansfield Apartments. It doesn't, as far as I know, unless I'm mistaken, it doesn't address this anymore. So graduate students are recruited, nationally and internationally. They receive stipends or teaching assistantships, but many of them are living at the, below the median income and at the poverty level. And some of them are using the very limited supply of town affordable apartments for low and moderate income families. And that's of concern to me. My concern is their need. And my greater concern is that the university does not seem to, in all of its new housing planning, so I'm looking, e.g. the new Mansfield apartment planning, as far as I know, is not looking at having affordable units related to this part of their population. There are additional housing units, as you know, they're going to start out, that it will be built on Eagleville Green. And my supposition is that some of those are also going to be taken by graduate student families. That puts a tremendous pressure on the town, which has a limited supply of affordable housing. The town is very much behind increasing that supply, but the supply should go to people who permanently live and work here, as well as to almost a forgotten population, those folks who are aging and find it very difficult to maintain the cost of their own homes and are forced to leave this community. So I hope as you get into this discussion between the town and the university, you're going to look at some creative solutions to this issue. Could be anything from, for example, the land that the university bought from a developer that they did not want to build anything last fall. I don't know if the university has any use for that land. Maybe that's something the town should be talking, university and the town should be talking about as a potential site that the town could use without and basically giving it to the town. That's just one, but I hope that you will get into this in some depth and not overlook the issue of what the impact is that the student population, the graduate student population, has on the town as a community. Thank you.
Okay, and rather than comment on each person, I thought it's just better for us to hear from everybody, and then perhaps Ryan, Jennifer, Michael, and myself can comment. Next, Elizabeth Sparks, are you here?
I didn't see her
Yes.
sign on,
Yeah.
Tara.
No, I'm under John Bova.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay. Elizabeth?
Yes, that's me. My concern is the water situation. I know that UConn has a very long history of taking a lot of water from the community for its needs on campus. Recently, or in the last 5 years, the water situation got so bad at UConn that they decided they needed to put in a pipeline from the Shinipsit River. And that is now part of their flow of water to their community. I know that some people along the route have been hooked up to that water, but I want to really make it clear that water is not an inexhaustible resource. And UConn has a tendency to think of it that way. Back in 2005, the university's water needs emptied the Fenton River. And with climate change, the very real possibility of that happening again, and worse scenarios where the Shinipsit River is depleted, where will UConn then go to look for water? My other concern is the watershed where a lot of the buildings that Mansfield are building is the Cedar Swamp watershed. And those aquifers that feed the people on Timber Drive and others in this area have a really big threat from the development proposed at 1750 Stores Road, because that particular property will have 120 units, and 120 units means at least 240 individuals. And that doesn't even count the buildings for office and retail space. That particular development, the developers want to sink 2 deep wells into the Cedar Swamp aquifers, which now service the people on Timber Drive. I'm really concerned that that particular development will suck the water out of the Cedar Swamp watershed and imperil the water supply, or one water supply, for the residents of Mansfield. I want the university and the town to really consider that when they're building, that they're taking into consideration the impact of climate change and the needs of water within the community, not just within Yukon. And that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Nuttall,
I'm here.
okay.
Hi.
Would you like to address the group?
I just want to ask some questions of the group. I'd like to know where I can find a copy of the recent road safety audit that was talked about in your minutes, specifically about the proposed roundabout on Route 195. When was that audit conducted, and what were the population considerations for that audit? The other thing I'd like to know is when and where are the framework for development meetings being held? Since there seems to be planning for the future of Mansfield, I'm assuming the public would be welcome. And so how can I find out about that? And where are the minutes of past meetings posted? Thanks.
Ryan, since she's asking a direct question, not making a statement, and 2 of those items are, well, all 3 include you. One of them is.
Sure. I'm sure we can make available a copy of the recently completed roads safety audit, and in there, it's a pretty voluminous document. I think it's like 140 pages. The methodologies that were used and when data was collected, it'll all be sort of spelled out in there. The Shared Economic Development Framework Working Group was intentionally set up as a staff to staff working group. It's not a public body. It does not, it's not a public body, so it's not subject to meeting notices or requirements. It does not convene open meetings. It doesn't keep minutes. It's basically just a name for an assemblage of town and Yukon staff or officials that talk about issues of shared interest around economic development. And so we have not been recording minutes, and those meetings are not open to the public.
Yeah, and do you want to address the roundabout? Because the roundabout is actually separate from this.
Yeah, so, right, so actually, yeah, thanks. So the roundabout is Kara just said, it's beyond, well, one, it's beyond the scope of the road safety audit, that the sort of geographic area that was the focus of that. My understanding is the idea for a roundabout at the intersection of 195 and 44 has certainly been talked about. It's been on the radar for a while. It's on a list. I believe it's a list. I'm trying to remember now if it's a statewide roundabout list by DOT. I think it's a statewide roundabout priority list that Connecticut DOT maintains, if not the Capital Region Council of Governments. I'm a little unsure there, but it registers relatively high, or has for some years, as a priority location for a roundabout, a good candidate for a roundabout. And so the town staff, town engineering staff within Public Works and others, we have been at a sort of high level conceptual stage, I guess you could call it. We are looking at the merits and the utility of a roundabout at 44 and 195, as well as a second smaller roundabout at 320 and 195. Because of the way the traffic would flow, our engineering staff believes if you were to have a roundabout at 195 and 44, you would essentially have to have a second roundabout because they're so close together at the intersection of 320 and 195. And so this is a concept. It's something that we think has promise and should be pursued. And so we've been advocating, talking to DOT, trying to, and we'll also talk with the Capital Region Council of Governments, CROG, about elevating this as a priority.
Anna, any follow-up questions?
You know what? We're not commenting on the roundabout today, are we?
No,
This is Leslie.
and just a reminder, the roundabout is a Town of Mansfield initiative, and we'll go through all the steps that it would need to go through the Town of Mansfield. So Jennifer can talk about that, but those would be public meetings through the Town of Mansfield, not through this committee.
Oh, okay, sure. This is the first I've heard about the roundabouts, and I have some thoughts about it. So, all right.
So
I
those
will,
would be Town of Mansfield public meetings.
okay, I'll look for those. Thank you very much.
And Jeff McEvoy. Is he here, Jeff? Okay. And it looks like we have some other guests. Ted Buskey and Eric. And there's a phone number, although I think the phone number was someone we recognize.
Hi, I'm Ted Buskey on 72 Timber Drive. Hello, everyone. I'm just listening in. Thanks.
Thank you. Eric?
I just have one question. I listened to a discussion about a 900-person dormitory being built near where Ted's restaurant is. And then the town is building across the street from me, a couple hundred more units, a couple hundred more units over at the old golf course. And now another 120 and Cedar Swamp has been proposed. What I wanted to know is all of these things combined are going to create infrastructure demands of all sorts, water, police, fire, traffic, and so on. And is it the case that the town and the university are considering all these impacts of these projects, not individually, but collectively and in coordination with each other? Because without that, you do all your traffic modeling about roundabouts or whatever, and it'll all be completely wrong if you don't take into account everything. Can anyone tell me if that's what's being done?
Sure. And Eric, could you state your last name and your address, please?
It's Jordan 104 Timber Drive. I think the roundabout's probably a disaster, but that's another discussion. On game day in particular, they prioritize traffic flow based on game day, and I can't do that with a roundabout.
Yeah, and I'll just restate that is a Town of Mansfield project that will work its way through Town of
Right.
Mansfield planning.
Just mention it in passing, but what about my question?
Yes, I will get to your question. I'm going to start with a couple answers. I'm likely to toss most of this to Ryan and Jennifer, though, since most of these questions are about Town of Mansfield projects. I did want to clarify that the university only has 2 housing projects going on right now. One is the Mansfield Apartments, which has been in process for some time, and actually public comment has already been occurred on that project and has been reported on this committee. And then Sean Vasington will be giving an update later on the agenda. We can talk about that. And then the second is just the South Campus project, which also, so those are the only two housing builds that the University of Connecticut is currently working on at the moment. So I wanted to make that clear because I think I heard a few Yukon housing, and we only have those two Yukon housing projects.
I attended online a meeting where they discussed the environmental impact of a proposed project near where Ted's restaurant is. And
That is a
went on for
town of
hours.
Mansfield project. So Eric, I will
Oh,
absolutely,
that is? Okay.
that is
So that-
private land. That is private land.
Okay,
Most of the projects that you're all speaking about are on private land, which are under the domain of the town of Mansfield, which is why I would like to toss it to Ryan and Jennifer.
And while Jennifer probably will make the same clarification, and I'm going to let her kind of speak to the answering your questions about process and sort of what impacts are evaluated and how. I just want to be clear. I know Kara's using shorthand here when she says town project, but just different words mean different things to different people. So yes, 100% correct. These are projects that the town will review and would ultimately approve through a land use, regulatory review process. But just to be clear, they're not town projects in the sense that the town is the proponent or initiating the projects. These are private projects that are happening in our town. They're not subject to Yukon review and approval in that sense. They are town review and approval. But just because I know there's been some misunderstanding based on a meeting I attended last week, that hopefully we're able to clarify some of that. People thinking that some of these projects were literally town initiated, as in the town of Mansfield initiated them, and that's not the case. But anyway, Jen, I want to turn it over to you.
Yes, sorry, Ryan. But yeah, I just wanted to make a distinction of who would actually answer the question.
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to go through. We do have a number of different developments that are being proposed in our town at this time. We have only one that has been fully approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that is the standard at Four Corners in the former location of the Holiday Mall, Willard's and Roselle's, Two Steps, whatever folks want to refer to that as, and that's 392 units. And there will be 35 affordable units available to folks making less than 80% area median income. There will also be some workforce housing. Then we do have a number of applications in various stages of the permitting process. The first one that people have been hearing a lot about is the landing of a zone, the mixed use center transition zone, and that is in the parcel that is immediately, I believe, west of Timber Drive or adjacent to Timber Drive. That is for commercial and office in the front. And then they're proposing, it's just in the concept phase now, 120 units in the back. Again, that's just currently a rezone. They will have to move forward with a site plan application. And if they are doing work within 150 feet of a wetland or watercourse, they will also have to go through that process as well. We have two public hearings that just closed. One is for the redevelopment of the golf course. Some of it, it's CMC Stores, 497 Middle Turnpike. That is for 256 apartment units. Then we have a public hearing that for these are just two for wetlands. We have not gone through the special permit process, which is where traffic, stormwater, lighting, landscaping, design will have to be looked at. So again, that's at 497 Middle Turnpike, the golf course project, 256 units. And then the public hearing also closed on a project that is in the former Huskies location on King Hill and North Eagleville Road. And that is for, it's 402 bedrooms. And I believe
Jennifer, not to interrupt you, but will you either put in the chat or someone or say out loud that website of
Yes,
yours? Because
right.
it's, for those on this call, they have a fantastic website that lists all the development projects, what phase they're going through in terms of the application process, the vetting. And I think it would be helpful to those on this arena or whoever's listening. That is the website to go to for information in terms of what phase it's in. Didn't mean to cut you off, but if people are following
Sure.
along, instead of
100%.
a million.
I will put that in.
Yeah.
Yes, so then, let's see, where was I? So those are 3 projects. One is for a rezone, 2 are in wetlands. The Inland Wetlands Agency is making decisions on those for wetlands on March 6th. On the rezone, I believe they'll be putting forth a decision on February 21st. Those public hearings are closed, and per our process and procedures and statute, no further public comment can be made. For all 3 of those projects, however, they will have to go through another approval phase. And there will be a public hearing, and public comment will be able to be received for that. We do have a wetlands permit approval, a wetlands permit approved for another mixed use development that is adjacent to Hops 44 and Toast and the gas station. They're going to be keeping those facilities, but adding additional housing and retail and commercial space. And we have some pre-applications that have occurred, but there are no what I call live applications. So I think I've hit all of the ones that are in the various phases of the development process. And then, of course, Eagleville Green, which is outside of the Four Corners area, that is a 42 unit mixed income property, and there'll be 34 affordable units. I will go ahead and put this information regarding our website. I do my best to update that very frequently. I'll put that in the chat, and I'm happy to answer questions. I am going to be posting on the planning department's website how to get involved, how to learn. You can always go to our agenda centers, and every application is on the Planning and Zoning Commission or Inland Wetlands Agency agenda, but I will be putting sort of a clearer link to those on the planning department's website, so that folks can learn about when there's a public hearing and when they can speak to these applications.
Thanks for all that clarification, but my question remains. As you build these things one after another, there might come a time when water runs out or traffic becomes untenable. And is there a process, coordination between the university and all these multifarious projects, that when we reach the project that might do that, there'll be somebody to stand up and say no? That's my question. I mean, is there, because every time you add one of these, you need a new traffic study, you need a new water study, and the university has impact too, and it has to all be coordinated. Otherwise, you're gonna run into a wall at some point. And I just wonder, is the process set up so this can be handled?
So the process is that each development, from the town's perspective, I'm not sure about the university, but when a town is reviewing an application, we look at each individual properties. They have to do a traffic study, a wetland study, a stormwater study. So, but they have to look at, so the standard, any additional development will have to look at the traffic impact of the standard, for example, because that has already been approved. So they do have to look at cumulative impacts, but they're only looking at how their development will add to what is already there, if that makes sense.
So they wouldn't consider a project that's approved, but it's not already there.
They would
So
have to. They would have to look at a project that is approved. Yes, they would.
So if you're building at Roselle behind Hopknot, they have to account for the not yet finished traffic impact of the Holiday Mall
They
giant
would
thing.
have to, by my understanding, I'm not a traffic engineer, but my understanding is yes, they do have to account
For everything else,
those
like water,
protections.
police,
Yeah.
school system, everything, because they need to take into account the things that are under construction, because we're doing a lot of stuff here really fast.
Yes. they are looking at not police and school system, but they are looking at traffic, stormwater, wetlands, things like that. That's what the Planning and Zoning and Inland Wetlands Agency regulates.
Right, but the town needs to look at all these things. Otherwise, all of a sudden you have to build a new school or something else you didn't.
That is correct. I mean, the school they're doing demographic analysis, but you're
Because you're talking about a lot of people between all these things combined, if they're all approved, and a lot of traffic and a lot of people.
yes,
They don't look at it collectively, various bad things are gonna happen.
right. We will, that would be something that the town as a whole would have to commission. We couldn't necessarily put that on a developer unless it's related to their specific project. We just don't have the regulatory authority to do that.
Can I just also remind that this is about, I understand that these impact everyone, but there are different mechanisms by which people need to make their public comment on projects, like going to town council, like planning and zoning. When they are university projects, as you know, they have to go to our board of trustees for approval. I'm actually a little surprised that we have this many people on this meeting, since these projects have been, I guess, in the pipeline for a while. So I thank all of you that are here for paying attention and giving your comments. I am a little curious as to how suddenly we have so many people in a meeting where we've been speaking about a lot of these projects. I also want to reassure you, Eric, that part of what the framework committee does is talk through some of these issues. As we're both state and public agencies, some of our conversations, especially about finances and impact, have to go through levels of approval, us with the board, the town with the council, and other mechanisms. So we need an outlet in order to talk through these things before they, I guess, bubble up to becoming issues for both the town and the university. But one of the things we have talked about for years and years and years is housing. It happens to be one of the, I think, one of the main things we talk about in literally every single meeting I think we have together. We talk about housing. So it's certainly something that's front of mind, and as well as all these economic impacts that you've spoken about with the water. I did want to just ask Sheila, or not Sheila, Elizabeth, you mentioned something about land that the university bought last fall, which I'm not sure which land you were speaking about.
Kara, I mentioned that there was a land that right there beside Discovery Drive, where a private developer had already submitted an application to zoning, and the university bought the land.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because you remember, there was quite a.
So that, yeah, and that is directly tied to our tech park build out off of Discovery Drive.
That's fine. I was just saying, let's look for creative solutions. My major point was about how is the university regarding its responsibility for needy graduate student families who have a direct impact on the limited resources that this town has for low and moderate income housing.
And I certainly know that I cannot directly answer your question. I wasn't sure, Michael's disappeared for a minute, about the grad student housing in particular, but I can tell you that one of the desires of both the town and the university is to increase the amount of graduate housing availability within the community. We have actively actually been recruiting, and when we speak, or Jennifer specifically in the town speak to a lot of these private developers talking about the need for housing for our graduate student and young PhD population, and also young families. We do acknowledge that there is a need for that type of housing in the area. And we just would love to have someone come forward with a plan that actually speaks to that.
I think it's the university's, I'll just stop there, but it's the university's responsibility to plan for that. These are students that they're attracting to their campus. They're coming here and they don't have enough resources to live. And I think university has to get back to the point where it regards this as an underlying responsibility. And I know you can't address that, but there are others at the university that can. I won't say anymore. Thanks.
Okay.
I just want to make a comment.
Brian? Yep.
I'd like to make a comment on Sheila's statement. You're echoing my sentiment exactly, and I brought some of these issues up lately, and I fully agree that the university does have a responsible for providing affordable housing to its students, and they can incorporate that with the Mansfield apartment project and other projects on the university, and take the weight off of the town of Mansfield and allow for more of our citizens to have affordable housing. And I thank you for speaking today.
Okay. We did not speak to the watershed, only to acknowledge that we know that that is a continuous concern and something, again, that both we speak about on a regular basis when we're talking about these projects. Okay, moving on. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes from December 13th. Dale?
Kara, I have a motion for an amendment.
Okay, okay. Well, discussion, changes or discussion, John?
I have 2 points on item number 5, updates I provided in the last meeting. The first point is one, I'll put it in the chat, Margaret, I'll put it in the chat for you, but students make their decision to move off campus in the fall and spring semester. It just says fall semester, so I'll add that in. And the second piece is also in item number 5, where it indicates that International Student Services provides support to students living off campus. They do, but my point in that statement was, I'll put that in the chat as well, that we actually provide support to that office for international students that are living off campus. I actually put both amendments into the chat.
Any comments on John's updates? So this is where I need help with Robert's rules. Do we need a motion to approve the minutes as amended by John Armstrong? Is there a motion?
Approve the minutes as amended by John.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Brian, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on, construction updates, and we'll start with UConn with Sean Basington.
Everyone, I'm going to share my screen. I believe I can. So as many of you know, we track graphically where our active and planned construction sites are. This map, for those that aren't aware of it, is linked at uconn.edu/construction and updated fairly frequently right now with the development on the South Campus being so fluid. With its logistics for the upcoming summer, the maps are being updated pretty much every other week. So I'm gonna use the map to facilitate this meeting's updates and start on South Campus, beginning with Mansfield Apartments. The record of decision from its environmental permitting process was delivered to OPM last December. We have had since been given a determination of adequacy from OPM about our EIE on that project, and the site was mobilized shortly thereafter and is finished its abatement since our last meeting as well, and is currently in the utilities and demolition phase. Site prep is also in progress. Those of you that have been near the site probably saw some trees that have begun to come down. Construction, right now we're evaluating bids received, and so construction is still anticipated to start as soon as June of this year. Impacts outside the fence line you see today, there could be a water line and a crosswalk that will be located above the water line. That could start as soon as this summer. Other than that, we're not tracking any disturbances or impacts outside of the project site. The trailhead, I understand, is for the Moss Sanctuary is going to be located off of 195, basically, and this Jen can confirm for me, but I believe it's in this general vicinity, and there'll be appropriate trail markers from the intersection 275, 195, directing folks in the southerly direction. And Moss Sanctuary, of course, can also be accessed off of Birchwood Heights Road and the trailhead and parking area there. Moving into the closer to the core of campus, the residence hall project and dining hall project that Kara mentioned is also active in its construction. They're operating on a 6-day schedule. It's also a design build project like Mansfield Apartments will be. We've been doing some blasting, some deep excavation, earthwork, all associated with the foundation package there. There's for those like me that walk campus often probably notice that the soil pile is pretty big, and that soil, most of that soil comes back onto campus. It will be moved out of the way and relocated to depot version property and then brought back onto campus at the appropriate time once the earthwork below that soil pile and utility work, et cetera, can be complete. It'll be part of the fill of the site, backfill of the site. It's still tracking as fall 2024 for its opening. We do have another project. I'm going to change the map legend just briefly to show that we forecast into the fall of 2023, so you can toggle these layers on and off once you're in the map. So I toggled summer 2023 on because one, it'll be here before we know it, and two, it has overlapping impacts on the residence hall site. It's the infrastructure project on South Campus that helps bring, in part, open the residence hall and dining hall. There will be road closures associated with that as soon as shortly after commencement, because E.O. Smith will still be in class at that time, and Mansfield Road, Coventry Road, and Maple Road on campus are often used as a cut through for parent drop off. In the morning, we alerted the school to that so they can let their community know of the anticipated closure. But there'll be a lot of impacts on South Campus. We've taken measures on our end to avoid significant events on campus. There's been some restricted hours of work. There's been student accommodations made. There's a lot of logistics associated, as you would imagine, with such a large construction site. I was asked to give a quick what you'll notice that's excluded from this site, for those of you that saw it at our last meeting's update, Mirror Lake is no longer painted in the color orange. We were, which would have made the site twice as big and only amplified some of the impacts on specifically on campus. We were asked to take another look at Mirror Lake and its budget was decreased from where it once stood, and we're currently speaking with Deep and others and trying to find an appropriate interim solution to the issues with Mirror Lake, which drains a very large watershed. about 120 acres in this area, 30% of which is not university property today. And it's a man-made detention basin, so it needs the upkeep, and the dam has some compliance issues with certain storm events. So we just need to figure out a way to do what we need to do in deep size with less money available to us. And then working over to, I'm going to toggle Summer back off. Gantt, the third and final phase of the Gantt renovations is scheduled to start this summer, and we're not sure if we will, so you'll see that color disappear now. These are projects that are already active over at the the University Safety Complex. We have an ongoing addition there that's scheduled to wrap up in the coming weeks once we get the electrical switchgear in place that's been delayed. We'll also be mobilizing the intersection improvement projects by shortly after commencement. We've been doing a lot of behind the scenes work with DOT and getting the submittals for the pole foundations and material long lead items ordered so that we can move that project through pretty quickly, hopefully have the signals operational again by the beginning of the academic year in the fall. That project upgrades the signal lights at North Eagleville Drive and Discovery Drive. It adds pedestrian push buttons for crosswalks that don't exist today. And the crosswalk at Auditorium Road is getting similar improvements because its programming is directly tied to the signals at the intersection nearby. And then our work at the Cup continues, mostly exterior work now. That's going to be continue to be behind the fence through commencement. We hope it'll be opened in June. We have a significant vault repair that had some scheduled delays as well. When this all reopens, this area from a pedestrian safety standpoint, this area will be put back together with a sidewalk where a driveway exists today, and the driveway will be relocated so that pedestrians will have a straight shot where the driveway once was to continue to link to the pedestrian improvements we've made in a previous phase of this project. I think that's all I have for today, Kara. Yes.
Any questions for Sean? Dale, then Paul. Margaret, can you unmute Dale?
I'm working on it.
Okay. We'll go to Paul first then, so that we.
Can you say anything about the Whitney House? Is there any hope that can be saved?
I can only say that the conversations continue with SHPO. That's literally all I know at this point. I'm also in a bit of a waiting mode because I have some responsibilities with how the site is put back together.
Dale, you look like you're in good shape there.
Thank you very much. I don't feel in good shape, but anyway, Sean, that's really great. I just wondered, is the EIE report that you've mentioned available to us or to be able to read as to what the details are on that?
Yeah, sure, Dale. Of course, is the EIE on the Mansfield Apartments redevelopment?
Right. Yes.
Yes, I can put a link in the chat. It did have it always a public process associated with SEPA, and there was a public meeting associated with this review and comment as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Sean. Sean, I think has to duck out. Next, we have similar updates from Jennifer and from Ryan.
I can, Ryan, do you want me to begin or would you like to begin? Okay. So if you want, I'd like to share my screen so that I can just show folks how to access the development activity website after Sean shows folks about the Mansfield Apartments. Okay, there we go. So can you see the planning and development website? And so so basically, anytime you want to learn about the development activity that I was just discussing, you go to this link on the left-hand side, and that brings you to a map. Takes a minute to load sometimes, and it kind of gives you an overview of what's happening. And then I try to keep these projects up to date. And I sort of went through them. We've got the mixed use center transition zone rezone that's over by Timber Drive. There are excerpts from the applications that you can click on. This is the zoning regulations that are associated with that rezone. So you can learn about that. This is the multifamily development that is over at the golf course. And that's again 256 units. And the project status is also indicated on all of these projects. This is inland wetlands application and the decision is pending. This is for Will Husky Student House or Blue Light Living. Again, inland wetlands application decision pending. We have a Four Corners mixed use development, inland wetlands application approved. I do not yet have a special permit application for that. We have the Eagleville Green project. That is the other approved project. I think I said that there was only one project. There's only one project in Four Corners that has been approved. Eagleville Green has been approved. And then of course the standard at Four Corners, if you want to learn more about that application, there are some materials here. Then we have different pre-applications. And a pre-application, I think there's some misinformation. A pre-application is when a developer or an applicant, potential applicant comes to the Planning and Zoning Commission and they just do a preview of what they're thinking of doing to kind of take the temperature of the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's non-binding. It's not a public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission, they can say that they like it and then approve, or not like it and approve it. It's just a way to kind of have a developer present their information. Then there's information about Southern Mansfield, the Champagne Motors redevelopment, but that's basically a few other pre-applications, the lodges at Stores, that's off Hunting Lodge Road, and then two parcels adjacent to each other, 541 Middle Turnpike and 555 Middle Turnpike. And then these are older ones that are there, but probably not of interest. But I'm always happy to answer any questions. And I will be adding to our website so that there's a quick link to all of the agendas for planning and zoning and inland wetlands. Right now you can access them from our agenda center. There's always the opportunity to comment during a public hearing. Once a public hearing is closed, then the Planning and Zoning Commission can take no further information either from the applicant or the public. So I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Jennifer? Brian?
I think it needs to be clarified. Since we have Paul and Jennifer here today, our zoning regulations were changed dramatically, I think, maybe a decade or so ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, which actually promotes development in certain areas. And I think with the zoning regulations in place, as they are, it may tie the hands of the Planning and Zoning Commission to slow this down. Am I accurate in that?
Well, we did have a moratorium back in like 2015, maybe 16, 17 on multifamily housing. And then we did, Linda Painter, my predecessor, worked with the Planning and Zoning Commission to develop multifamily housing regulations with the understanding that there was an interest for multifamily housing. And the understanding also that we have areas in our town with water and sewer infrastructure. Regulations can always be changed. That there's something that, you know, they're a fluid process. And but prior to that, we really didn't have multifamily regulations or regulations for affordable housing. So we do have regulations that if you meet those regulations, and it's pretty high bar, you do have to go through quite a bit, but you are able to get a certain density of residential multifamily housing mixed use development, just like any other regulation.
Can you clarify the opportunity zone that exists here in town and on basically how that works? I think it's funded by the federal government and maybe there's some restrictions there. Maybe you can help me out on that.
I may, Northwest Mansfield, a good chunk of Northwest Mansfield is a designated opportunity zone. So there are certain tax advantages for developers. If they develop in this particular area, it has nothing to do with our zoning regulations, even though it's called a opportunity zone. People still have to follow any local land use process. Cynthia Benzelm and Ryan could probably speak more clearly on the tax benefits and how that went into play, but that was in like even before Ryan got here in 2019. And Kara probably knows a lot about that as well.
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily a lot more I would say other than the tax benefits are not a, you know, it's not property taxes or anything that the town administers. It's other, you know.
It's capital gains tax.
Right, yeah.
Now, can a town restrict what goes on in the opportunity zone?
A town can restrict through their zoning regulations. They can't restrict the tax benefits that a person would gain from developing there. But our zoning regulations, our plan, all of those things still are in effect.
It appears to be a pretty large incentive for development, the tax benefit on capital gains.
Most likely, yes. For it would, I mean, I think if you're developing in an area where there's an opportunity zone and you're a developer, you're going to get, and you can get those tax benefits, it would be an incentive, I guess. Cynthia was much more involved with that than I was.
Yeah, Brian, I can circle back with you. I apologize. I need to run a meeting that starts at 2:00. But if there's some follow-up questions on the opportunity zone, I can circle back with this group through Ryan.
Actually, there's a great website that Cynthia did that explains kind of at a high level what the opportunity zone does and where and the areas of town that impacts. And it's under tools for businesses, I think, on the town website.
That's correct. Thanks, Jen.
Jennifer, you were also under the agenda to speak to affordable housing. Did you address what you wish to address?
So all to say, we do have Sheila, who is still here, and she's our chair, but this is a very just high level quick update. We have an affordable housing committee, as you all know, and hello to a nice kitten. And they have begun to meet. They're very active. We're very lucky to have Sheila Amdur as the chair of the committee and a very active committee group. They're looking at the Affordable Housing Trust and how to prioritize expenditures from that. They're also looking at, they have a number of items, and they did want to come to this committee with just sort of asking more specific questions, and they discussed the possibility of kind of writing up questions so that the committee would have a chance to respond to those questions. Am I capturing that, Sheila, correctly?
Brian, let's finish with the affordable housing. Then I saw you raise. your hand.
Yes, you are, and that's, it's why I was very clear that I was speaking as a private citizen, because we haven't yet formulated that. I don't know if you wanted to mention that we're looking, what we've recommended to planning and zoning, is that relevant?
Sure. So planning and zoning has an amendment before them, a PZC initiated amendment to increase the set aside for of affordable housing and increase that from 10% to 15%. And there is a public hearing for that on next Tuesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting. And currently, any residential development over 5 units is required to set aside 10% of their units to be affordable. They can also, there is an option to do a fee in lieu. Right now, planning and zoning is just looking at the set aside. They do and Paul can speak to this, but they do understand that the need to look at that fee in lieu, to look at the whole reg, but they wanted to just look at that, the set aside first, because it was kind of a quick fix at this point. And the Affordable Housing Committee has weighed in on that.
So did you say you were bringing forth a list of questions that you wanted addressed in this committee?
No, they would like to come at another time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. Did you have a question, Brian?
I had a comment, I expressed interest with the town manager to actually try to get a spot on the Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify that.
Well, again, this is town gown. You should speak to them about that outside of this. That's not the purview of this committee.
I'm
And this
happy
was
to-
relayed.
As you know, Brian, it's the Committee on Committees that makes those appointments. And I'm not sure as a council member if you need to go through the application process because they already know you, but there is that application process and then gets appointed by the Committee on Committees.
I contacted them.
Great.
Okay, moving on, although I see Ryan had to leave. I'm not sure other updates or progress. What was that, Margaret? Did someone want?
It was really just the open-ended piece, and Cynthia also had to jump off because, as she said, she leads a 2 o'clock meeting. So something that I told her that I would just inform the group is because it does pertain to Mansfield Downtown Partnership, and the town of Mansfield are once again cooperating with the town of Wyndham and the Willimantic Downtown Association to host Restaurant Week, which will start next Monday, the 20th, and continue through Sunday, March 5th. And we just wanted you all to be aware of that as well. This is something we are in our 2nd year on it. We are at about 20 restaurants participating. The website taste2towns.com posts all of the menus and features and pricing for both the takeout and dine in. And it's just a very positive opportunity to collaborate with our neighbors, but also to, I think, for the restaurants to feel the love a little bit of their communities. The Lieutenant Governor will be coming to the region to hold a press conference on Friday about this event. So that'll be happening around noontime in Wyndham on Friday with Susan Beisowitz. So we just, again, wanted to get it on your radar. Cynthia, Kathleen, and I have been spending a fair amount of time getting this organized, and we had a great kickoff last night to celebrate the sponsors and the restaurants who are participating and get them revved up to promote it as best they can. And I know Kathleen is reaching out to some of the university communication mechanisms to, for them to include it as we can.
hold on one second, Brian. Margaret, I'm getting nervous that we're gonna not have a quorum soon. Do we have enough people? Because is enough of the actual committee still on?
I believe so. You have 6 members.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Because a lot of,
yes.
half of this group is not voting members of the committee. So did you have a question, Brian?
I'd like to make a motion.
A motion.
A motion.
I'm a motion for, in
A
order,
motion, a motion in response to the public comment on the time that we hold our meetings. I would like to move effective February 14th that the University Town Relations Committee hold its meetings anywhere between Monday and Thursday after on or after the hour of 6 p.m.
okay, I think that what I would suggest is we add that to the future agenda item, because you do need to have, we have to have more information discussion. So I would add that to our future agenda item.
That's fine.
I'm not sure we're at the point now where we're ready for a motion to be made. But again, this is like Robert's rules. Tony's the expert here.
I can make a motion on the council at any time, you know, once I have the floor. I don't know what the rules
okay.
are for this committee. I would think you should be able to make a motion if a member has the floor.
I'm unclear on this too, Chair Workman, only because we have also filed a meeting schedule, which has to be filed at the end of the year for the coming year. So I would have to check with the town clerk's office. You know, we can probably amend that, but you may be right. There may be it may have to be part of an agenda. So I'm sorry, I'm unclear on the technicalities, but I'll be glad to add it to the next agenda and check on those technicalities in the meantime.
I'm fine with future discussion on it.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Town and Yukon COVID-19 planning. I know poor Rob is always waiting till the end here. And I know Michael Gilbert, if you look at the minutes from the last meeting, I'm going to suspect that the update will look very similar to the update on number 6 from last meeting, but I'll defer to Rob first.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kara. There has not been a whole lot of material change since we last met in December. I can tell you that the community level, as measured by the CDC, continues to be at medium. The counts within the health district population, or also in the town of Mansfield, which includes the university, continue to essentially stay plateaued. They've been between 85 to 45 counts on a weekly basis pretty much since this past summer. Interestingly, what we really did not see is an uptick in cases when the kids came back from Christmas break. We still continue to hold our weekly clinics here at the town hall on Mondays and Thursdays. We are now passing out free COVID kits, antigen test kits to anybody, 2 per person. They just need to present themselves at the main office here in Mansfield Town Hall. We do continue to see occasional clusters of cases with some employers and some of the schools, and we support and respond to work accordingly when that happens. And then finally, as everybody probably knows, the White House has announced that the public health emergency declarations will end on May 11th. It's unclear exactly how, at this point in time, how it'll affect us here at the health district. The state health department is still waiting and compiling information on that. At the very least, I suspect that it will result in the commercialization of COVID-19 vaccines. And so then access to those vaccines by the health district is probably, to the free vaccines, is probably going to cease at some point in time. We're still waiting for updated information on when that may occur. And until that occurs, we'll continue to hold our booster clinics at the town hall. We're also gonna working to start being able to bill insurance so that when it does commercialize, we'll hopefully continue to provide that service to the community moving forward. And I think that's what I got.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions for Rob and then Michael? Michael? You're on mute. You're still on mute, Michael. There you go.
You got me? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kara. I'm Michael Gilbert. I serve as UConn's Vice President for Student Affairs. And I expect that the university will review our current COVID immunization and booster policy as it relates to student and faculty and staff in the coming weeks. I expect that we will have an update about our plan, our preliminary plan anyway, as we look at next fall, and I'll be happy to update the committee when we have that information.
Do you think, so our next meeting is on April 11th. Is the timing such that you will have a decision on April 11th about the fall?
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Is that a yes, Michael?
Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
I'm not sure who's calling. I'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting for another update. Believe it. Okay. Is there, I think we're getting past the time. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn this meeting.
Brian, is there a second?
I'll second.
Dale, all in favor? All right, thanks, everyone.
Good day, everyone.
Bye.